Imagine you have a piecewise function like this, where while x is less than 3, you have it's on at a value of 9, and when x is more than 3, it's on but at a value of 2. So it's like a switch. We went from 9 to 2. You can represent this piecewise function using a unit step function, and this is used to solve differential equations using Laplace transforms. There's an equation or a formula that we were given in our lecture about how to represent piecewise functions using a unit function, but this graph will explain why it's that way. So this is a unit step function. It's off before 1 and on after 1 at an amplitude of 1. Now, if I want to represent, let's look at the first part of this graph. I want it to be on originally at a value of 9. How can I do that? Well, if I first shift my unit function by 3, because in this case we want this switch to activate at 3. So if I shift it at 3 and multiply it by 9, you'll see that it's actually off first and then on. So how do we invert that? Well, you can do 9 minus f of x. This is the function 9. It's a constant function. If you take away the unit step function, which is shifted at 3 with an amplitude of 9, you'll get 9 minus 0, which will give you 9. And then you'll get 9 minus 9, which will give you 0. So this function right here, 9 minus the unit step function shifted at 3 multiplied by 9, will give you this, where the switch will be on before 3 seconds at an amplitude of 9, and after 3 seconds, it'll go down to an amplitude of 0. It'll turn off. Now, our original step function, instead of being completely turned off, it actually turns on to a value of 2. So how do we do that? Well, again, we can use another unit step function that's modified. So in this case, we've got a unit step function of 2. So it's basically we've shifted the unit step function by 3 seconds again, because that's when we want it to turn back on to 2, and multiplied it by 2 so that we get our amplitude at 2. If we add this value to our original, so to our modified that I just explained of how you get it to turn off at 3 seconds, you'll see that if you add these two functions together, you'll get the final piecewise function. Because if you do 9 plus 0, you'll get 9, and 0 plus 2 will give you 2. And that will give you this final equation, which is an exact match of our original piecewise function. Right there. So the general formula is basically you first turn on your function, you turn it off, and then you turn on the next function. So in this case, what we did is we had 9 turned on. We then turned it off by subtracting at the shift of 3, because that's where we wanted it to turn off. And then we turned our next function 2 on by adding the unit function shifted at 3 by adding it. So it's turning on 9, turning it off at 3 seconds, and then turning on 2 at 3 seconds.